Hello everyone, today we're drawing Mario Bros. The movie. I want to talk to you about this drawing. If you see this drawing, you're going to notice that it's completely made with pencil. But if you notice, you're going to notice these very light areas. These areas were done using an eraser. What I did is I used this kind of erasers and I erased some of the gray parts that I had put previously with the pencil. So you're going to see these very sharp light areas. But also I included some darker areas in some parts that needed those darker parts. Pretty much the same way I did this picture of Captain Underpants. So basically I made everything gray with the pencil, then I made some darker areas, and then I used my eraser to make some lighter areas. Of course, this is going to allow me to create a better contrast between light areas and dark areas and all the gray parts. Basically, this is the same process that we're going to be using today with the picture of Mario Bros. For this process, we're going to need to know how to shade some very simple shapes. We're going to be shading a circle or oval. That is pretty much the same way. We're going to draw a pyramid. So I'm going to draw one line pretty much in the middle. I'm going to draw some slanted line over here. Then I am going to join. And another slanted line. I'm going to join over here to have a pyramid right there. And also we're going to need to know how to draw cylinders. Cylinders are very important shapes to shade. So what I'm going to do to shade these elements, these shapes, is that first I'm going to make a gray area around them and inside them. Very soft. With my pencil, I'm going to go around using a grip like this over the pencil. Then I'm going to use a piece of toilet paper, a napkin, a piece of cotton, and I'm going to soften everything around. Very soft. It's important that we also color around because that is going to help us with the contrast later on. Also, you're going to notice that when I do this process, part of the line is going to get a little bit softened and erased. That is going to be good in case we don't want to work with the lines too much. We want to have something more three-dimensional. So let's start shading the sphere over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my moldable eraser. I'm going to erase one area, pretty much the shape of the moon, like this, kind of a curved line over here. You see it's a kind of wide area. And I'm going to also shade the opposite area over here, a little bit darker. With just this, we're going to pass her over the napkin again. So basically that is what I need for my sphere. To help with the contrast, I can use my eraser. In this case, I cut my eraser in a triangular way. I can go over the edges, a little bit to define the shape. I can also use my eraser to make a little highlight over here. I'm going to use a similar process to shade these two shapes. So we're going to start with the pyramid. Now with the cylinder, I'm going to erase pretty much all of the top of the cylinder. Some of this side at the right of the object is going to be a little bit lighter. It is not right at the edge, it is a little bit inside the shape. And also in the opposite side, we're going to have this darker area that is called the terminator line. This is the darkest area in the object. This is the area where there's no more light touching the object. This over here is an area of reflected light. Just to make sure, I'm going to put a little bit of a darker area where this object is touching the ground. So that's pretty much everything we need to know when we shade these three shapes. And using the same knowledge, we can shade almost any picture. So about this picture, I started drawing everything over here. I drew the picture you saw at the beginning of the video. And right now I am working on the shading. So if you see over here in Mario, the first thing I did, you're going to notice the difference in the lines between Mario and Bowser. If you see, the lines over here are very softened. Pretty much the same thing that happens as I smeared the lines on the shapes with the napkin. And over here in Bowser, the lines are pretty much the first lines that I drew. Well, all the second drawing that I made with some basic lines. So these lines, I'm going to soften them later, and then I'm going to use these shapes to shade a little bit over here. The same way that you're going to see here in Mario. But of course, these lines are going to be part of the final picture, yes, but also I'm going to draw some lines on top. If you see over here, in Mario, I started making some of the parts that you saw, for example, here in the pyramid. I made all this pyramid, all this triangle of the front of the ears much lighter, and also making this top of this sphere, that is the head, much lighter, and also making this top of this sphere over here much lighter. I'm making this cylinder, I'm making this lighter part of the cylinder, I'm making this lighter part of the cylinder, and also I'm making some parts darker. For example, this bottom part of the sphere, that is the head, this bottom part of the cylinder over here, this bottom part of this twisted cylinder over here. I'm coloring everything, I'm shading everything, thinking about those simple shapes. Now I'm going to show you a little bit the process in real time as I color on the actual picture. So pretty much what I did so far is actually simple. I used the same ideas from shading cylinders, from shading spheres, from shading pyramids, and that is what I have worked over here. So I have made some lighter areas, some darker areas. For example, in Bowser, you notice how I wanted most of this bottom area not to be so distracting, so I made it all dark. I copied the picture, I made it white, and then I colored over with a darker color in the bottom in a clipping mask, and then I merged everything together. And now I am just thinking about where these light and dark areas should be. Right now, if you notice, I'm not going super in detail. I'm just making sure that I know where those light and dark areas should be. Later, I'm going to go into detail to clean up some of the lines. I want to make sure that you know also that I'm going to think about this hair in Bowser like pyramids. Okay, so I'm going to have pretty much one edge over here with a dark color and one edge over here, the other triangle with lighter colors. The other thing that you're going to notice is how I used pretty much the colors from the environment to make the shading for this picture. If you see over here, I'm using a warm color for all the lights in Bowser. I'm also making a warm color for the lights in Mario. And also, they're going to have some reflected light coming from this yellow over here, reflected on some of the bottom areas in all of the characters. You're going to see this yellow color right here in the bottom of Mario part, even in the bottom of the glove over here. The same that you saw in the shapes, I am not just coloring everywhere. I am just letting some of that previous color, all of those original colors, to show through the shading that I'm making. So I'm making some darker parts, some lighter parts, I'm making some highlights, but I'm also letting that color show through some of the dark and light areas that I'm making. For the rest of the process, I just simply going to continue doing the same. I'm going to make some lighter parts, some darker parts, to make some highlights in different areas, and to make some other parts darker. I'm going to increase, for example, shadows and shades when they need to go. The idea in this point is to make sure that all the picture is very clear, that all the details are completely visible, that all the shadows are in there, that all of the shapes are well drawn and well proportioned. If you see in this Captain Underpants picture, I'm doing exactly the same process that I'm doing with the picture that we're doing in this moment. Whenever we need a shadow, we're going to make it darker. Whenever we need to make something light, we're going to make it lighter, we're going to erase. The idea in this moment is to work on the details and work on the contrast. As you can see, the process of drawing and painting with pencil and digitally is not that different. We follow the same logic, just applied with more or less detail in one or in the other. I expect this process answers many questions for those who are starting digital art and gives you one workflow that can be followed. Remember, this is just one of many different ways of working. See you next time. Adios.